Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you after Mikel Arteta's press conference on Tuesday morning ahead of Wednesday night's game against Crystal Palace. Lots and lots discussed today during the press conference. I thought as always I'd pop on here, just go over some of the comments Mikel Arteta had to make, some of the answers to the questions that came his way. We'll look at a few things, lots of transfer stuff obviously, because that is the way of the world at the moment. We're heading into the summer, so a lot of the focus right now is on what could happen. In the summer, he talked about David Luiz, Saliba, Willian, Bernd Leno, plenty of stuff in there as well. And then we'll have a little look ahead to the team news ahead of the game against Crystal Palace on Wednesday night, which we've just learned is going to be Roy Hodgson's final home game in charge of Crystal Palace. That's just been announced by Crystal Palace this lunchtime on Tuesday, that he will be leaving the club at the end of the season, at the end of his contract, which means he's got 2 games to go, and the one home game will be against Arsenal. Obviously, there'll be fans in the stadium as well for that one, so it kind of adds a little bit to what, let's face it, is a bit of a nothing game anyway, so it adds a little bit of a storyline to it, and probably makes Arsenal's job a little bit more difficult, because it's going to be probably a bit of an emotional night for Crystal Palace there, saying goodbye to a manager who has served them so well in the last few years. I'm sure the players and the fans will want him to go out on a high, so maybe adds a little bit more difficulty to Arsenal's night's work at Selhurst Park on Wednesday night. But right, let's talk about some of the things Mikel had to say, and we'll start with David Luiz, which is obviously the main bit of news that's come out of Arsenal in the last few days. It was the end of last week actually. David Luiz will be leaving at the end of the season. This is the first time Mikel Arteta has spoke about it, the first time anyone at Arsenal has officially spoken about the fact that David Luiz will be leaving. Lots of questions on him, and here's some of the things that Mikel had to say about the Brazilian. He said, I had the privilege to work with him for 18 months. I really enjoyed it. I think we got on really good. I think we had some great moments together. He's been really helpful, someone who we really like and who we appreciate so much. So I say thank you to him, and I wish him all the best of luck in his next chapter. Talked about his sort of relationship with Luiz. He said, I've really enjoyed and learned from him. He's very helpful every time with the team, and I feel sadness as well, because you would get attached to the players emotionally. When it gets to this stage, it's tough and it hurts, because that relationship is now going to go away, at least in this space, and not seeing him every day. Again, I have to say thank you to him. Now, David Luiz has been a really important player for Mikel Arteta since Arteta arrived. Massive influence on the pitch, massive influence off the pitch. Yes, there's been some errors along the way. We know that. It kind of comes in the territory when you've got David Luiz, but I do think he's been a fairly decent signing overall for Arsenal, as I touched on in my last video when I spoke about it. I don't think Arsenal would have won the FA Cup without David Luiz last season. I think this season he's proved, when he's been on the pitch, he's probably been Arsenal's best defender as well, and they have missed him over these closing weeks when he's been injured. So not surprised to see Mikel Arteta quite upset about that fact, but having said that, I do think that the club and Luiz have reached the right decision here, and that it is the right time for him to move on and for the club to look elsewhere. Mikel asked a little bit about how the decision was made, and he said, we've had very clear talks in the last few months. We already had a big decision to make last year when we had to extend his contract in a very, very difficult moment during the COVID world, and with the pay cuts and everything, we managed to extend that for one more season. He's given his best since then. I've tried to help him as much as I possibly could, the club as well, and after some conversations we decided that it was the best way to do it now. It was after a few conversations that we had, David and we discussed the situation in different occasions, and the other day we made the final decision on that. So Mikel there sort of hinting that it is a fact, it is pretty much been a two-way thing, that I think both parties agreed that this was the best way forward for David. Now he wants probably to move on, have one last step in his career maybe before retirement. I don't think, he'll probably be looking for like a 2 or 3 year contract possibly at this stage. There's no way he would have got that at Arsenal. Maybe he'd have got 1 more year at best, should Arsenal have decided to give him, try to convince him to stay, but Arsenal weren't in the mindset to try and convince him to stay anyway. So it's been a pretty two-way thing, a mutual thing, and everyone is in agreement now that the best way forward is for David to leave the club at the end of the season. The big thing that's come from that now really is what happens next. What do Arsenal do in the summer? Do you go out and replace David Luiz when you've got already signed lots of players, let's face it, we've talked about it, a right back, a left back, a central midfielder, a number 10, a striker possibly. Do you go out and spend some money on a centre back? Again, when in the last few windows you've already bought Saliba, Gabriel, Mari, even Luiz as well in the last 4 windows. Do you go out and buy another centre back, or do you give Saliba the chance to come back and be David Luiz's replacement? Obviously, Saliba's over at Nice at the moment, where he's been in January since January on loan. That loan is due to expire in the end of the season, and he is due to come back to Arsenal. A lot of fans want to see William Saliba play. We can understand that. Arsenal invested heavily in him. We've yet to see him in a competitive game for Arsenal. So is he going to be David Luiz's replacement? Now, obviously, Mikel was asked about this, and he said, you will see in the summer the possible replacements. William is our player for sure, and that is a decision we're going to have to be taking in the summer. When we finish the season, we will sit down and discuss the roles of every member of the squad and how they can fulfill that role. He is our player, so he'll be back here for sure, and after that, we'll make the decision based on the agreement of the role he is going to play in the squad. Interesting comments, I thought, there from Mikel. It's kind of felt to me, it certainly didn't feel like he was absolutely backing William Saliba to be David Luiz's replacement. It didn't get the sense that he was definitely going to be the man who was going to sort of step up and play a lot of games next season. Almost felt like he was saying that he'll be our player. It was this line, here's our player, so he'll be back here for sure, and after that we'll make the decision based on the agreement of the role he is going to play in the squad. So it's kind of like, yeah, he'll probably stay around if he accepts he's going to be a squad player, maybe get the odd game here or there. That's what I kind of got from that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of what I got from that, was Mikel saying it certainly didn't fill me with confidence that Saliba is in his plans to be an absolute first-team regular next season. Again, we'll have to wait and see how the things pan out in the summer. He's done well over in France, no doubt about that. He hasn't absolutely torn up, all the trees. I think he started very well. He's maybe struggled a little bit as the season's gone on over there in France. Mikel was asked, have you been keeping a close eye on his development? Obviously, it's fairly difficult at the moment in terms of getting over to France. But have you been able to watch him and keep an eye on his development? And Mikel said, absolutely. But we still have great people doing that. Ben Napper is always in contact with him. Ben Napper is Arsenal's loan manager. He is the man sort of tasked with the role of keeping in touch with all of Arsenal's players who are out on loan throughout the season. He says, Ben Napper is always in contact with him. He's the one creating every assessment. We, as a coaching staff, obviously are following his progression, watching his games and in contact with him. It's not an ideal world to feel that you still belong here and you can have face-to-face relationship, but we try to do it in the best possible way. Saliba's going to be a really interesting one this summer. I know there's such a groundswell of opinion from the fan base that he has to be playing. He should be playing. Arsenal spent an awful lot of money on him. I think that Wesley Fofana's emergence in the season he's had at Leicester has sort of added to that, because Arsenal fans have been looking at that thinking, well, Saliba was more highly rated than Fofana really when he was at St Etienne. Look what Fofana's done when he's been given a chance at Leicester. Why hasn't Saliba been given that opportunity at Arsenal? Again, you have to only say what you have to trust. For me, you got to trust Mikel and the coaching staff, and they clearly didn't think Saliba was ready to make his mark in the Premier League and play regularly this season. That's why the decision was taken to get him out on loan. The big mistake in my mind that Arsenal made was that they didn't get him out on loan in summer. They just wasted a few months with him, which didn't do any good for Saliba, didn't do any good for anyone, really. That was Arsenal's big mistake in all this. If they did think that he needed to go away, which they clearly did, then they had to make sure that deal happened in the summer. To have to wait until January to get him out on loan, just a big mistake. Wasted months for the player, for the club, for everyone. So that was the main mistake, I think, in terms of how Saliba was handled last summer. I really hope he comes back and plays this season. We all do. He looks like a talent. Everyone that I've spoken to who was involved in that transfer thought he was going to be a superstar. He had the talent to be a star. Yes, he has an awful lot of work to be done, but that's why Arsenal really put the work in to get him here ahead of a lot of clubs that summer in 2019, which feels an awful long time ago now. So we all want him to do well. We all want him to come and make his mark, and hopefully he will get that opportunity in the summer when he comes back to the club. Okay, a few more things to discuss before we call time on this video. Let's talk about Bernd Leno, who's another player Mikel Arteta was asked about in terms of his future. There's been lots of speculation about Bernd Leno. Will he go this summer? 2 years left on his contract. He did give an interview over in Germany this week, kind of contradicting some of the stuff that's been said in terms of his future. He kind of hinted that he still sees his future for now at Arsenal, although didn't really talk about extending his contract. And I think that's the key thing here, is that if Arsenal are to keep Leno and he is to stay, then you kind of feel that he needs to sign a new contract, because he's only got 2 years left on his deal this summer. You don't want that running down to 1 year and getting into that same situation Arsenal have got in time and time again with other players. So although Leno has said that, at the moment he wants to stay and maybe get back to Champions League with Arsenal, he hasn't said anything about signing a new contract. And if he's not willing to do that, then you feel that Arsenal are going to have to look to move him on, possibly this summer. Now, Mikel was asked about Bernd Leno and his future and about his comments, and he said, look, he's another one with a contract here that, because of the length of his contract, a lot of things will be speculating. He has 2 years here and he belongs here. Again, not really a definitive answer on Leno's future. He's just saying he's got 2 years here. We knew that. He's saying he belongs here. Well, clearly he belongs here because he's got a contract at the moment at Arsenal, so he does belong there. But he doesn't really say anything in terms of his future and whether it is absolutely nailed on this summer that he is going to stay at Arsenal if a bid comes in. I think that's something that again is going to have to be decided once the season ends. I know a lot of people will probably take this comment as Bernd Leno being absolutely nailed on to be at Arsenal next season. I'm still not sure about that. Like I said before, they certainly still like David Raya at Brentford. And that could be something that happened as well. The Ajax goalkeeper, which I've spoken about, depending on what happens with his impending appeal to his doping ban. So there's plenty of things to happen during the summer in terms of the Arsenal goalkeeper. And I don't think Mikel Arteta just saying what he said here is going to really stop any of that speculation. Another player who's been linked with a move away, Willian, only arrived last summer from Chelsea, and that supposed no-risk deal, a free transfer, hasn't worked out for Willian, that's for sure. Mikel was asked about him and whether he is still going to be at the club next season. He said, every player that is under contract is very likely to be here with us next season. Again, I don't really think that's true, Mikel, because you're talking about possibly the Willian there. We don't know if he'll definitely be here next season. Hector Bellerin, he's got a contract here. I don't think he's going to be here next season. There's certainly a chance that he may well leave. Granit Xhaka as well has been discussed. I think the Athletic, David Ornstein, reporting that even Xhaka could potentially be on his way this season. Alexander Lacazette, again, another player, only got 1 year left on his contract. He could well go this season. So I'm not really too sure that's the most truthful of statement from Mikel there. But then he talked more about Willian and about his difficult season. He said, we signed a player with an incredible talent, a proven talent and performance level in this league. And this season has been difficult, and I take full responsibility because I have to be the one getting the best out of him. We had moments, but not to the level that he did before. This is an assessment that we will do individually with the players and with Edu, the board and the ownership, to make the right decisions for the future. Interesting last line again there, I thought, having said that about everyone at a contract being at the club next season. So what decisions need to be taken in the summer when you discuss with the owners and with Edu? So again, I think I'd take a little bit with what Mikel Arteta, as with all managers in press conference, with a little bit of pinch of salt when it comes to some of these players like Leno, Willian. Okay, and before we go today, let's quickly talk about some team news ahead of the game against Crystal Palace. Nothing majorly new on that one. Mikel, given the update, said no big changes. I think everybody is fit apart from David, obviously Luiz. And he said, let's see how Granit is as well. But for the rest, I think that they are okay. So that's fairly positive for Arsenal ahead of that game against Crystal Palace. Like I said yesterday, I'm not really too sure either of those two players are going to get rushed into anything, even if they do get themselves fit. I'd expect it to be for the Brighton game. There's no point rushing now. There's only 2 matches left. They don't really mean too much, these matches, although mathematically Arsenal still have an opportunity of getting themselves into Europe. But still, I don't think you're going to take any risk with Granit Xhaka or David Luiz, especially with Granit Xhaka having the Euros on the line this summer and with David Luiz leaving the club at the end of the season. There's no point rushing any of those. It'll be interesting to see what sort of team Mikel sends out against Palace on Wednesday night. Do you make any sort of changes with next season in mind? Do you give Balogun a little opportunity before the season ends? Do you give Miguel Aziz a little opportunity before the season ends? I know a lot of you want to see that happen and you were disappointed it hasn't happened in the last couple of games. Personally, I'm not sure we're going to see that. I still think Mikel will go as strong as he can over these last 2 games, try and win them, try and keep that momentum that Arsenal have kind of built in the last couple of games, go in and get them into the summer. They still do have an opportunity to at least overtake Everton. Slight opportunity to still claw back West Ham and Tottenham, even though that looks very, very unlikely. And you've got to remember, every position in the Premier League is worth money. So there is money on the line here. There is money that could help in terms of the transfer market this summer, even if it is only relatively small amounts. So there is still stuff to play for. That's why I'm just not sure we'll really see Mikel just throw out the current team and chuck in the kids and give them an opportunity over the last couple of games. All right, that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm not going to be at Crystal Palace tomorrow night. Childcare issues preventing me from going, but I will be watching it. So please do keep your eyes peeled for all the reaction to that match. And I'll try and pop on tomorrow morning anyway and do a video looking ahead to that game, predicted 11, that sort of thing. So until then, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. I'll speak to you very, very soon.